Alright, so today we're going over 10-point cannons. Personally, I think that they can be one of the most valuable tools in Line Rider and can be used in any number of scenarios to do a multitude of things. And, since singularities are frequently misused and this is my video, I'm going to start by requesting you exercise care when adding these to your tracks. Here's a few examples. Here, I flip the rider in just one frame. Boom. Here, in this one, I start the rider with 150 pixels per frame, even though I'm starting at none, and I can do this at any point. So we're just going to close that too. And here, I move a manual from one spot to another without any noticeable change in velocity momentum. It's like he was there, like, to begin with, So yeah, enough of that shit. Let me teach you how to make one. Okay, so check it. The first thing that we have to understand before getting into 10-point cannons is that the physics work in iterations, that there's actually more going on under the hood than you can see when you just go, hey, I'm at the first frame of the track and I go to the second frame. There's more going on there, actually. So we can enter a mode that lets us visualize this by pushing Alt and the arrow keys left and right. So the first thing we see is we're at physics iteration 0, and there are 6 of them. So the momentum tick means that absolutely nothing can happen except his just general momentum is being acted on. And this is important for later, because when you create a 10-point cannon, you actually don't do anything except for add to the momentum, because it's only acted on once every frame. Anyway, so when we move on to the next iteration, we actually get some reaction here from the rider, and he actually moves his cute little butt on top of this line. This is not the last time that we actually get to interact with the rider, though. So I can put a line right here, and it interacts here, and it interacts here, but they're at different times. When we actually just go frame by frame, we only see just one thing happen here, because he's actually alive here, but in the real frame, he dies somewhere along the physics iterations. Alright, so let's get to the part where the cannons happen. So the first thing we need to do is open up settings, enable contact lines, momentum vectors, gravity wells, hit tests, and super zoom, because we're going to be making some really annoying ass tiny lines. We're just going to close that good guy, and we're just gonna zoom in all the way, and we're gonna move on to the first physics iteration of the first frame, because this seems like a good place to start. Why not? And so we see that the momentum vector is facing that way. That means any sort of line that gets on the other side of that, something that tries to pull it that way, it's gonna hit. So if we just place a line here, that's great, except, I'm sorry, we got our hopes up for nothing. I'm sorry. We gotta make it tiny as fuck. So I'm just gonna make it 0.01 length, because that's what we need to do. It can sometimes be larger than that. It can, but it depends on your angles, because sometimes we got something that's just gonna overlap on another line, and that's just annoying. You don't want that. That thing just looks like an asshole. So we're just gonna make a tiny ass line right here, and we're just gonna make it 0.01, because that's what I feel like right now. And we're just going to use Control and Shift to move the line along its axis. We're going to find the one spot in the first physics iteration that the line hits his ass. Now, that's good. That's okay, but I'm sorry, we have more work to do. Well, first of all, I forgot to turn on the multiplier to ×3. We can see in the background that it's changing some of his momentum right now. But see, there's the problem. You see these arrows? They mean one of the lines isn't being hit right now. So our multi-line of 2 actually fucking sucks. So we're just going to turn it back to 1. And we're going to move it around a little. And there we go. You see, now when I adjust it, I can move this contact point an arbitrary distance. So that's awesome. Except I forgot to turn it on to multiplier 3, and now he's having a hard time in the next frame. So we're just gonna leave it at 3, so we know that the multi-line works at least. And we're just gonna take off one of those 3 because we fucking hate this guy. Honestly, we hate him. So we're just gonna do the same exact thing. And we're just going to make it as minimum as possible. Just minimal. Shut up. And we're just going to try to see if multi-lines work. They don't. So. They don't. So. We're just going to keep going until it works. And hey, it works. Now we're just going to make, like, I don't know, 10 lines? Just because we're going to be copying off of this guy. He did the hard work. But we want to steal that. Okay, so check it. If we work on this one, we're getting some progress here. We just gotta do the same ass shit. And we're keeping the same angle of all the lines. So when we finally are done setting up the cannon, we can set it to the same value of multi-lines on each one. And then he'll be in the exact same, like, orientation, but it'll be somewhere else. So, we still aren't getting multi-lines to work here. We got them to work here. Wowzers. So, if we just copy this guy over here. And it's very important when we're doing this to make sure that it doesn't interact with any other iterations. Because if it does, one point is going to have more strength than another. So I can't tell if this one's being interacted with. But I'm just gonna hope. I'm hopeful, okay? So we're just gonna drag this one, and we're using Control and Shift and Control Shift and X here to adjust the line along its axis, and then we adjust it perpendicular to its axis to increase or decrease the strength. Because remember, these lines aren't actually supposed to affect him much; they're just adding momentum. So, hey, we got lucky. It happened in the first try. We're just gonna go over here, and this should be the last one that isn't a bitch. Wowzers. Aw, no. The multi-lines didn't work. This is why I always go to 3, to make sure. Let's see. And then, let's see, that worked. So, now we've got some points that are a bitch. So, right now, let's turn off momentum vectors so we don't visualize the next momentum step. These points are pretty fucking tightly wound together. They're so tightly wound that I'm not sure I can take them apart. In fact, I know I can't. So, instead of being a cool guy and copying someone else, I'm gonna have to take this iteration to do something else. I'm just gonna take a little tiny blue line and make sure that it hits both of them. And so on the next iteration, You can just barely see it, but they're separated, and that's all we need. And so we're going to do the same thing to the legs, because there's two of them, and we want to make sure he knows that we know he has two legs. Alright, so we're just going to make this really basic, and wowzers, it's separated. So now we want to make actually absolutely sure that everything in this step, in this iteration, is set how we want it to. So we're just going to set it to, I don't know, 40, so that we move every single point that we have control over, and make sure that they're all updating properly, because we don't want to have to redo these. That is a bitch. So we're going to go 40 here, and we're going to go 40 here. And they're all working perfectly. We just left the legs and feet behind. That's alright. So, as you can see, we can adjust this to any number we want, and it'll just move the point in that direction. So that's the power of 10-point cannons. So, back to the hands and feet, because we gotta fix those. Right now he only has one of each. So we're gonna steal this guy again, even though we adjusted it. We're just gonna adjust it back to 40 after we're done. So now we've grabbed his hand. Wowzers. And this is gonna be annoying, because we want to be able to adjust it. You know what? It wasn't annoying. It was perfect. We got really lucky. High five. So we just gotta get his other hand without grabbing the one before it. Maybe we didn't get lucky. Maybe we were ripped off. And this is how it can be just a total bitch. You know, I'm not satisfied with our blue line we left on physics iteration 1, and since we didn't make any other changes, we can just easily do this. We're just gonna make a nice little increase our separation distance. Wowzers. So we're gonna do that to Mr. Legs. Mr. Legs here actually has his own separation, but we're just gonna put it on an even plane so we don't have trouble hitting it. So hopefully we don't get fucked this time. We got one hand. And now it seems like whatever we do, we kill him. Now, this is a metaphor for life, because no matter what you do, you're gonna die. And I guess we're gonna try making it even smaller. Now it says 0 length, but it still has the same angle, so we do have a chance of binding to it. If we're really lucky. If we're really, really goddamn lucky. And sometimes it can be the difference of 1 pixel. So when doing the hands, we separated them, everything's going well. We've got 40 multi-lines on each of them, but one's significantly further than the other, even though they're best buddies right now. So this means that it's actually interacting on more than one iteration, and that is not good. So we just step forward a little, and we see that this is the center of the line right here, and then on the 4th iteration it goes back to it. This is why our lines are super tiny, so avoid this as much as possible. So we see that it interacts with this one, so we're just going to move it. We're just going to move it along its axis with Control Shift X until it no longer interacts with us. It hates us. So we go back and it works fine. And all we gotta do is add back the multi-lines and really just pray that we can get the multi-lines to work again. And there we go. So we had 40 here, we had 40 here, and wowzers, it's exactly where it should be. And all we gotta do is the legs next. Since we learned from this one that we don't really need this line, we're gonna try it like this without the line, because it was really only meant to help separate. So we're just gonna start here, and it works great. We've got just one of them pulled, and the multi-lines there, everything's just perfect. Let's just double check to make sure that it's not hitting the line more than once. I think it's right here, so we're just gonna step through. And I'm not sure, so we're just gonna move it. We're just gonna decrease the multi-lines and move it just a little. And then we're gonna move it until on the third iteration it just doesn't interact. You see it's interacting now? Now it's not. Boom. So it just doesn't interact at all. It's great. We're working. We're making progress in our track. And look at that. 40 multi-lines like that. Wowzers. So we're just going to do it for one more line, and we just fucked that line up. So we're just going to get another one from our copycat. And there we go. We got just one more leg. And he has an identity of his own, so he needs multi-lines too. We're going to give him the same amount because every line is equal. And look at that. The leg is being a bitch. So just like before, we're going to make sure that none of the iterations hit it. And would you look at that? One of them hits it. So I think it's this one. Yes, it's this one. So we're just going to decrease the multi-line. We're going to move it along our axis with Control Shift X. And look, it's no longer hitting it. So now we just gotta hope the multi-lines work. And it looks like they do. And so now that's everything. But look, we forgot this one. But we didn't. And this is why you don't make 10-point cannons. Because if I try to adjust this now, because it's not working right for the multi-lines, if I try to adjust this by decreasing the multi-lines and moving it, now all of our second frame's broken. So now we have to redo the whole thing!